This was my identity.
Nobody talks about how freaking hard it is to be a dentist. What most people talk about is how this affects the patient. What nobody talks about is how this affects us. Dentistry is ready for this. Now is really the time.
Welcome to Wellness and Dentistry, where today we're going to be talking all about the mindset around DSOs and the DSO landscape today. I'm joined by my co-host and my good friend, Dr. Kyle Stanley, who's a dentist, tech entrepreneur, speaker, and researcher. And I'm Dr. Martin Mendelson, a disabled dentist, coach, speaker, and author. And my first book, One Move Makes All the Difference, is available wherever books are sold. And together, we've helped thousands of dental professionals pursue wellness and dentistry. And if you're unfamiliar with us, check out our respective links, websites, and course offerings on our combined website, wellnessanddentistry.com. And if you really like what you hear, please come join us November 6th and 7th in my hometown, or the town in which I live, in Phoenix, Arizona, for our Light Side Live workshop hosted by AZ Perio. So we're super excited and hope to see many of you in November. So Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. This is a topic that we're going to talk about with the mindset behind the DSO landscape that gets a lot of dentists riled up.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets dentists riled up the most, number one, insurance.
Yeah.
Whenever I post something like that, it's like, oh, the fucking insurance companies.
Yes.
Ah. And the
Yes.
second one are DSOs. So we're talking
Yep.
about one of those today.
Yeah.
And I saw this headline, I saw it a few different places that basically said, over the last few months, we've started to see headlines about Aspen Dental, affordable dental care, DCA, Dental Care
Mhm.
Alliance, that they're facing financial pressure.
Yeah.
And maybe they're collapsing, their private equity is taking them over because they owe so much debt. And I see a lot of people like, yeah, oh, cool, all right, yeah, like all these big conglomerates are crashing, maybe. And I wanted to talk about it just from a little bit of the practical financial part of what
Yeah.
could be happening. I don't know this, but this is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, is that we all remember, I would say, the heyday of buying practices, which has really been, I'd say, the last 10 years,
Hmm.
like maybe 2016-ish, up until, maybe even a year or so ago, where if you were going to sell your practice and you were going to sell it to a DSO, you could get an incredible valuation
Oh yeah.
because what a lot of these DSOs were doing was, hey, we're at 100 practices. Well, if we could be at 200 practices, we're going to get this crazy valuation.
Hmm.
So what they were doing was overpaying for practices.
Yeah.
So you had a practice that was doing, let's say, $1 million in EBITDA, they
Hmm.
would pay 10 million for this
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
When really it's probably only worth 5 to 7 million,
Yeah.
right? And so they're paying all this money to try to get this big valuation. Well, you can only do that for so long because you're kind of like faking
Yeah.
your valuation, and I see tech companies do this all the time too.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think what's happening now is interest rates are expensive. Back then, 2016, like interest rates were low.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even up till 2021, interest rates were the lowest they've ever been, basically. Money was
Hmm.
cheap. People would just say, let's buy everything possible. And I know a lot of dentists that were on the upside of that, that
Yeah.
sold their practice to these DSOs, got crazy valuations,
Yeah.
and went off into the sunset. Now, I
Yeah.
also know dentists that were part of these DSOs where they were getting paid for their practice, but we're also getting equity in the DSO. And
Yeah.
the whole idea was that they're going to recap within a few years, which means like recapitalize, raise more money at a higher valuation. And I have friends that are still waiting for that to happen.
Hmm.
And with some of these big DSOs, that's not happening.
Yeah. And all that's fine, well and good. And then you also have all these dentists that are in their own ownership position, partnership position, or even associates that are just so angry at, their idea that DSOs are buying up everything, which the data doesn't support.
Yeah, tell me about some of that.
So this is directly from the American Dental Association Health Policy Institute. So this
Okay.
is this is not Instagram data, folks. This is data. So in 2016, I'm sorry, excuse me, in 2024, 16.1% of US dentists were affiliated with a DSO. Now, for some that like to be alarmist, they'd say, oh, well, that's up from 7.2 in 2015. Oh no, what's going on? But here's the reality. 20 to 25% of dental practices are currently DSO affiliated or DSO owned. Okay. But you got to look at this with a fine tooth comb because you know what the biggest group of dentists that are affiliated with DSOs are? The younger ones. So,
Mm.
among dentists less than 10 years out of school, approximately 27% are now affiliated with a DSO.
Yeah, most of that is probably not ownership. Most of that is probably
Correct.
associateship.
Correct. So, when it's all said and done, and then you look at the math from the other side, 73% of dentists still own their practices. 73%.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is more than people make it out to be.
Yeah.
I hear all the time in my speaking events, in my online courses, people commenting on my Instagram, like, DSOs are taking over. And like, DSOs have grown significantly,
Yeah.
but by no means are they taking over. 73%
This
of,
is this is the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. This is frequency bias. This is new car phenomenon. You go buy a new Lexus and all of a sudden everybody in town drives one. You hear that your buddy sold to a DSO. Now everybody's selling to a DSO.
right.
You know, you go to a large scale meeting and you notice that a bunch of the big DSOs have booths and oh my God, now they're taking over. So, I mean, come on, folks. The data, although it's growing, the data doesn't support the panic,
Yeah,
in my
right.
opinion. Now, you and I, what we need to talk about something else, which we didn't mention in our pre-record huddle, but the other thing that people get hot under the collar about relative to DSOs is quality of care.
Hmm.
Now, Kyle and I have both shared a similar career path in our lives, which some of you know, some of you don't. Kyle and I have both worked for labs in our careers as dentists, as a liaison between the dentist and the laboratory. And unfortunately, there are many dentists out there that are providing substandard care
Hmm.
in all practice situations. This is not unique to DSOs. There are good dentists and bad dentists. There are good cardiologists and bad cardiologists. There are good massage therapists and bad massage therapists.
Hmm.
This is a human condition, folks. And I do not think it's fair to say all DSOs provide crappy care because one of the DSOs that Kyle and I know quite well is MB2. And I can tell you for a fact that's not going on there within the practices that we are both familiar with
Hmm.
that are owned by, family members and very close friends. These are extraordinary clinicians that are part of the MB2 umbrella. So no, you can't say that as a blanket statement, just like it's not fair for the lay public to say all dentists are looking to fund their kids' college
Right.
education.
All dentists are
That's not
scams.
fair either,
No, I
right?
mean that you have people overtreating and undertreating in private practice
Yeah.
in DSOs. Does it
Yeah.
happen in DSOs? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Does it
Yeah.
happen in private practice? Yes.
Yeah.
Are there bad dentists in private practice? Yes. Are there bad dentists in DSOs? Yes.
Yeah.
Now, there is, I think when you have investors in
Sure.
something, the investor doesn't really care if the dentistry is done well. They just
No.
want to see the EBITDA go up, right?
Correct.
And that can create incentives that aren't correct for the patient, right? And so I think what most people get really mad about when they talk about DSOs usually isn't bad work, it's usually overtreatment. So even if the crown is great,
Yeah.
but the crown didn't need to be done, then that's bad, right?
Well, and I also think people are forgetting something, which is great dentistry can be done anywhere. And you know, I'm so honored for my many, many years at Spear Education, seeing dentists from all over the place, all over the world, from all different walks of life, meaning types of practices. And even if you're in a highly saturated area of dental insurance, that doesn't mean you can't still do high quality dentistry and find people who want to pay for it. Frank Spear himself is an example of that, working in before he moved to Seattle in Fife, Washington, in a tiny little town,
Hmm.
doing world renowned dentistry. So
Yeah.
there's so many examples out there that you can still do this kind of dentistry because think about it. If you're doing bread and butter dentistry that's third party reimbursement, but you have 1 to 2 comprehensive cases a quarter, that can change the face of your practice.
Yeah.
It's just math.
Well, I think another thing to talk about with this idea of these DSOs potentially going under or not doing so well and their private equity is taking them over again is really to explain how private equity works from some
Sure.
people that don't understand it. So usually what this is private equity buys practices and they buy them using a lot of debt.
Hmm.
They expect rapid growth or recapping, getting new valuations at a higher valuation, and they expect to refinance that later. So
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
like 5 to 7 years. But then what you have are things that change during those 5 to 7 years, like
Yeah.
interest rates rise, patients slow spending,
Hmm.
labor gets expensive. I mean, think about how much labor has gone up in the last 5 years.
Fair.
The whole equation totally changes. And so, yes, do I think DSOs were paying too much for practices? I do. But also just things have changed. Like the financial situation of dentistry has changed. So, and you have things like the COVID boom, remember when
Yeah.
everybody didn't work for 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, but they still had the best year in the last 10 years?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
had these huge collections, and then practices were selling at record multiples. So
Yeah.
not only was the collections big, but the multiples on top of that were big. Interest rates were almost nothing at the time,
Yeah.
you know? And so people were borrowing cheap, buying a bunch of stuff, aggressive acquisitions. But then you had things like wages going up,
Yeah.
insurance reimbursement staying flat,
Yeah.
hygiene shortages, financing costs literally doubling. Now, why does this matter for every dentist? Because this isn't just a DSO problem.
No.
So independent practices are seeing payroll increases, supply costs increasing, patients delaying treatment, financing becoming harder. When I look at this, what this means to me is we need to be better at doing business.
Hmm.
And I talked with one of my friends recently, and um, he's a broker, so he brokers a lot of these deals between dentists and DSOs and tries to get dentists these great valuations. And he told me, just 3, 4 years ago, practices are just like if you have a practice to sell, we'll buy it and we'll give you
Yeah.
a great valuation. It was like, practice? Yes, the answer is yes, we'll buy it. And now these DSOs are coming in and being very particular. They don't just want a
Mhm.
good clinical dentist, they want a good business. And I think now with the financial um, landscape of dentistry having changed in the last 5 years, there's almost nothing you could do better for your future in from a financial standpoint then learn how to run your business better.
And I would also say, because I haven't thought about it in exactly these terms before, but hear me out. Let's see if you agree with me that running your practice effectively as a business also includes your ability to treatment plan and communicate.
100%. Yeah.
So, but I've never thought of it within the same bucket before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the phrase insanity by definition is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a
Expecting
different
something to
result.
change. Yeah.
I can tell you from personal experience, when VC money comes in and buys the company, they have expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if they have expectations for growth and you expect to grow doing the same thing you've always done, how well do you think that's going to work? So that's your opportunity to go to Pankey, to go to Spear, to go to Dawson, to understand treatment
Voice.
planning better,
Mm-hmm.
to become a better leader, to focus on the business areas of your practice so that things can grow. And, if you're not in that situation, but you're looking to grow your independent practice, well, the same ideas apply, right?
Yeah.
So we can't expect things to change without doing something about it, right? But here's the thing. We're going to talk in a couple episodes about Sean Akers' new book, The Power of Beliefs. And you got to believe that change is possible. And why do I say that? Not because it's woo woo, but because it sends a message to your brain and then you act differently. And so you've got to believe that there's another way, that there's an answer, right? Um, I just finished a 12, 14-week course at Wharton on the neuroscience of leadership. Why did I take that? Because I had a belief that there had to be an answer of why the dentist and the team don't see eye to eye and don't see
Mm.
things the same way. And I found my answer, and we're going to be talking about that too. But the point is that I had to believe there was a different way, which then spurred me to action. If you don't believe that this is going to work, that you can make it work, or let's flip it. If you believe DSOs are taking over everything, it is it is going to guide your actions to manifest that destiny. Period. End of story. Right?
Yeah. No, totally. I also want to talk about 'cause some people may be hearing this and being like, if these big giant companies can't make it work, is dentistry going down?
No.
Is this still a great profession?
Yes.
And I think yes, it is. First of all, we have an aging population.
Yeah.
Demand has been durable. People are valuing healthy smiles even more. Like
Yeah.
maybe this is just my algorithm, but I've been seeing a lot of things like the new flex is having a great smile.
Yeah.
Like that is the new like old money thing is to
Mm,
like have a great smile. Technology is improving our efficiency. AI is making practices more productive and
mhm.
more efficient. Building trust with our patients is easier. So I think dentistry is a great profession still.
I believe that as well. And I'll also say in the same breath, you can't expect to run it the way you did 5 years ago,
Right.
10 years ago. You've got to adopt a business methodology, a business mindset. You've got to know your data.
Hmm.
You've got to understand who's coming in, what's leaking out of the bucket. You've got to understand, like, if you're using Pearl, for example, what are the missed opportunities of diagnosis on the radiographs? Um, you've got to have data to drive an effective business today in dentistry more than ever.
Yeah. I mean, what are some of the things that dentists can do? It's just what you were saying, but I have a little list here, which is like knowing your overhead monthly,
Yep.
protecting your cash flow, avoiding unnecessary debt, doing things like improving case acceptance.
Hmm.
Huge,
Oh
huge.
yeah.
Investing in leadership, all the stuff that Martin and I have talked about, and building a practice that generates profit and not just
Yeah.
production. That
Yeah.
is a big thing. I've been messaging back and forth with a doctor that I talked to at one of my lectures a few weeks ago, and he produces, but he doesn't bring much home.
Mm,
And I'm trying to talk to him about it slowly, coach him a little bit on how to do this, but it's really like he needs to just think about this as a business.
yeah. And something else I want to say too is that particularly if you're a practice owner, like at the end of the day, you always have the right to make any decision you make. And at the same time, at least for me, making that decision based on data is the recipe to sleep well at night. And
Yeah.
so even if you decide to go a different direction that's against the not against the data, but in concert with the data. In other words, you say, okay, I know this is costing me money. However, I choose to do it this way because that's my choice. I'm actually still okay with that because at least it's a data-driven decision.
Yep.
I'd like to give you an example from my personal life, actually. So, Michael and I both work from home. We typically drive one car. And so I've been on this campaign to go down to one car. And so I did all the math and I'm like, this is what we spend on insurance. This is what blah, 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 blah. The number of times that we both been out of the house independently in each other. Like I did all the math. And it was like an open and shut case financially that we should only have one car because the amount we would spend on Uber was a pittance of
Yeah.
even the insurance.
Uh-huh.
And the answer I got back was, but I don't want to give up the independence of having the car whenever I want it. I was like,
Hmm.
well, that's okay.
Yep.
But we still did the data, or we
Yeah.
still understood the data.
Right.
And I,
No,
and
that's a
I,
great way of thinking about it is if your only decision was financial,
right.
and it wasn't like, you guys are in a position to where you can afford it,
Yeah.
and that choice of having that freedom
Yeah.
is worth the cost that you're willing to pay, right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great example that goes back to dental practice. And it's
Hmm.
something you talk about all the time, which is like delegation.
Yeah.
You don't need to do everything. You can pay someone to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Totally.
So I have a little bit of a final quote from at least my side of this discussion today, which is
Hmm.
for the last decade, if not more, longer, almost
Hmm.
anyone could basically build a successful dental practice because money was cheap too.
Hmm.
And over the next decade or two, the biggest winners won't necessarily be the biggest practices. They're going to be the healthiest businesses,
Oh yeah.
the ones that have financial discipline, that have good leadership that you and I talk about, that are adaptable. That is really becoming more important than pure growth.
Yeah.
And, I can't beat that into all of our listeners enough that, like, if you want this sustainability, your mental health has to be on track, your
Hmm.
business health has to be on track. You have to be a great leader. And one of the quotes that one of my mentors, Christian Coachman, said that I'll never forget is become a great leader or work for a great leader.
Yeah.
There's kind of like no in between, right? And
Yeah.
and if you own your own practice, but you don't want to work on your leadership, then you have to hire a leader.
Hmm.
If you want to just be an associate in your own practice, so to speak, that's possible, totally possible.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to pay someone six figures to come in and manage your business.
That's right.
Any other final thoughts?
I think for me, it's don't buy into the panic, buy into the data.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you may be in an area that has a greater DSO concentration, and therefore the data may be different. And I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah.
However, like anything in life, um, making the decisions based upon emotion is going to end up guiding your actions and end up putting you in a place that you may not want to be based on actions and decisions you make based on said emotions. So just be cautious around your thoughts. And when you start having those catastrophic thoughts, ask yourself my favorite coaching question of all time. How
How
true
true
is
is
that?
this? We spent a few hours around
Yeah.
each other, Martin.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
Exactly.
what you said reminds me of, I saw this quote on Instagram a few weeks ago, and it said, after having kids for so long, I realized that 90% of parenting is controlling your own emotions.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, that is self-mastery,
Yeah.
whether it's parenting, running a dental practice,
Hmm.
being a great clinical dentist, being a great spouse, like being a good driver, being a good
Hmm.
investor. If you can control your own emotions,
Yeah.
you can have so much power.
Yeah.
But people think it's this woo stuff.
Hmm.
I don't know. Ask Martin and I because we went through this process where we didn't know how to do it,
Yeah.
and then we did know how to do it, and our lives changed. And now, after, we've trained thousands of dental professionals around the world to do this, you can ask them. You can look at
Hmm.
Martin was just showing me some of his reviews from some of his lectures. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. He changed people's lives.
Yeah. It's wild. Absolutely wild. And just a real quick, deviation, talk about not buying into the emotion. Like, there could be days where I'd be like, oh, my message isn't resonating. I wasn't asked to speak at this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
And then I look at my own data. I'm like, does it really matter?
right.
Right?
Yeah.
No.
Well, guys, come hang out with us November. Tell me the dates again, Martin.
6th and 7th in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm not going to promise, but there's a high likelihood of homemade cookies. I'm just saying.
Ooh.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, this is the first time we're doing it in Phoenix. You
Yeah.
guys asked us to do it here, so we are coming to
Yes.
Phoenix.
And
Phoenix has
shout
a
out to,
great
sorry,
shout out to AZ Perio
shout
for
out to
hosting
AZ
us.
Perio. Yeah.
And Phoenix has a great airport. If you haven't been there, there's
Mhm.
directs from all over the place.
Yep.
So we hope to see you guys. Just go to the show notes down below, or you can go to lightsidedentistry.com and you'll see all the details there. So we'll see you on the next episode of Wellness and Dentistry.
Bye bye.